So one of the recurring themes that's been coming up as we look at alternatives for either bot implementations or intelligent assistant implementations is how important is investment that's been made in contact center technology, and then as contact centers morphed into multi-channel, omni-channel, or what I've been calling opti-channel fabrics, how important is, or how can investment that's already been made in CRM, in knowledge management, in machine learning, all these sorts of things that some of these leading-edge large enterprises have already invested in, how does it get leveraged into a intelligent assistant or conversational commerce strategy? And I've brought this group together, and they're going to introduce themselves and give a little bit of background, and you'll see why this carefully selected group of intelligent folks has been invited to engage in this conversation. We'll start with Esteban with an intro.
Hi, my name is Esteban Kolsky. I'm an intelligent assistant.
Enough said.
Ask me anything. I've been an analyst for 15 years. I spent half that time at Gartner and the other half as an independent analyst, and I'm the person that everybody likes to hate. So my most hated person to my right.
There are more hated people, incidentally. But anyway.
I'm Ian Jacobs. I'm a senior analyst at Forrester Research, and my job is to dispute Esteban's intelligence, typically. My research focuses on the digital transformation of customer service, and about 50% of the client inquiries I've gotten over the last 2 months have been about bots, chatbots, virtual agents, virtual assistants, which is just a dramatic shift, from what it was just a few months before.
So my name is Nicolas Kouchkovsky. I did listen to the earlier presentation, so I'm not an assistant, I'm an advisor. And I also happen to be a
We're
consultant.
far down the learning curve now.
Well, I pretend to. I help startups and mid-sized B2B company with their go-to-market strategy and marketing execution. I spent more than 2 decades in the customer experience, broad customer experience space, including 10 years at Genesis in various marketing and product capacities.
So modest. It's such a modest group. I love it. So the flow of this afternoon's conversations or presentations from the podium have sort of demonstrated that, as I think Ian just said, that there's just been an acceleration of interest, if not investment, in intelligent assistant technologies. And I want to direct the first question at Esteban, just to ask, for the purposes of context, why you think the interest has accelerated. And you can describe how long you've followed the evolution of
Just one word, it's Facebook. Facebook said they will use bots, and then everybody said, hey, what's a bot? Let's do one of those. It's awesome. It can solve all the problems we have. And therefore we have bots and intelligent assistants. Seriously. I mean, 1995, we were already fielding questions about intelligent assistants. Back then, they were virtual agents. Then they became chatbots, then virtual agents again, then smart assistants and intelligent assistants. And whatever you call them, it's the same thing. It's a conversational engine that answers some questions if you train it properly. And Facebook brought it to the front and center.
Well, there's one for Zach. Ian?
Well, certainly, if I was mapping out inquiry volume, Facebook F8 was the tipping point. But the underlying why are they asking about it is the same reason contact center people ask about everything, and that is, how do I take cost out of the business? How do I take cost out of the agent part of the business, which is the bulk of the cost of the business?
And 20 years of not being able to do it didn't convince you.
That doesn't mean, I didn't say that it was a good question.
So basically, it's like, I'm smarter than the people that came from me for the last 20 years. I haven't been able to do it, and I'm going to do it this time because Facebook said they're cool.
Yeah, basically. I'd buy that.
We're done, thank you.
No,
if you hadn't guessed, this is also the comedy routine of the evening.
Right. Well,
Tip your servers, they'll be.
There's tremendous inertia, let's just say, and still, we change the verbiage constantly. Nicolas, what's your take?
So, Joe mentioned that he was reading the the reports, the annual reports of all large companies talk about the customer experience. So everybody knows that there is this executive mandate. I can tell you that most customer service leaders, they start the year with marching order, number one, shave cost. And number two, by the way, do it without impacting the customer experience. So it's hard. And for many organizations, it means finding a way to crack the code of self-service and automation. And this is why there's so much excitement with this technology coming a little bit to age.
But to be fair, I mean, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but to be fair, the reason why we're seeing such an evolution this time is because the results are getting better. And the results are getting better because we have more processing power than we ever had at such a ridiculously low price thanks to Amazon. Brought to you by your friends at Amazon, who will give you any power you want for $1 a day. But it's true that bots work on power. The more power you give them, the better they work. And you have processing power available for a dime. I mean, I have companies that were formed as startups for $3,000 a month in technology costs. $3,000 a month wouldn't buy you a computer in the old days.
And yet they are unicorns. So that's one for Beezer. But you're touching on the accuracy point of view. I mean, have we hit some sort of tipping point in the accuracy either of speech input, text input with natural language understanding, and then whatever sort of adjacent technologies that, and I'm going to direct this one at Nicolas. I mean, we called this sort of a CRM panel. But it seems like CRM is like this holding spot for the stuff behind the contact center and what all is getting involved now.
Yeah, today the CRM and the assistant world are pretty disjoint, frankly. I think it's natural based on the stage of evolution of the technologies. There's a couple of other things. I think historically knowledge management projects were pretty complicated, so everybody learned from that and is trying to contain the virtual assistant as a standalone project. Many enterprises have limited appetite to touch to CRM because it's complicated as well, and they find it's already enough complicated, so that's not that thing. There's a mental model as well. Intelligent assistant is for customer-facing, CRM is employee-facing. One deals with unstructured data, the other deals with structured data. And like we said, the fact that these days a lot of projects can demonstrate hard ROI that stand by itself is such that it pushes the two to stay disjointed. I think it's a big issue. And again, if I want to tie it back to the earlier discussion, the transition of the industry, context is very important. Personalization is becoming critical, and you can't do it if you don't access the data that reside in many cases in CRM systems.
So I have two completely different threads here. One, to Dan's point about systems and CRM maybe being a stand-in for those enterprise-facing systems. We are starting to see a change. I mean, Joe was up here on stage, for example, talking about a virtual assistant for agents to help with their productivity and their lives. And I think that's going to be one thread of this, that it's going to actually tie into all of the enterprise-facing systems that enable customer service rather than just being the customer service vehicle itself. So that's one. But the other is me being somewhat of a skeptic, as I always am, and saying, we have this lovely event here, but, TechCrunch is going on with Disrupt today.
When did that become a virtue, to just disrupt things? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. But somebody earlier was talking about Twilio. Well, Jeff Lawson was up on stage saying, actually, if I was going to be investing, I wouldn't be focused on customer service and virtual assistants right now. I'd be focusing on the Miss Piggy bot and the entertainment and the information provision bot. So a specialized news feed just for me. And this goes to Nicolas's point, actually, about personalization. And this is sort of a roundabout way to get there. When I hear that, the skeptic in me is like, yeah, stick it to him, be a skeptic. But then I say, actually, customer expectations are being set by the interactions we're already having with these virtual beings. Personalization. When I talk to an Echo and Alexa answers me, it's answering me. It's connected to my sources of information. Esteban will say, yes, I needed to go through and do every one of those individually, one by one, and connect Capital One to it, and connect whatever. And
it's your privacy, dude.
It's true. But that is the current kind of expectation that is being built. So until we get to the point where we can do that as an enterprise, and that's going to require integration to all of these systems like CRM to provide that kind of personalization, customer service is going to be lagging far, far, far behind the kinds of experiences that consumers are already having.
Yes, and the reason for that is because we continue talking about return on investment. And as long as you continue to talk about return on investment, customer service will never go anywhere. If you talk about time to value, if you talk about the value that it brings to have, the bots that you guys created, sell $1 billion with something that costs you $100,000 to put together. I don't know the cost, but I'm paraphrasing, right? But I mean, sell $1 billion for $100,000 that you put for customer service. What's the ROI on that? Who cares? We made $1 billion. But what's the value that you bring? What's the value that you bring? You bring new clients, you bring more satisfied customers, you bring agents that are less tasked to do things that they don't care to do. I mean, the churn, you guys talk about, customer service churn forever, right? 20, 30%. You know what's the churn these days? 5%. The reason for that is because we keep increasing what we give the agents to do their job. An agent does a great job when they have, the tools to do it. Let's get all the riffraff, the people that the 60% that we don't care about, that ask about our opening hours and shipping policies and whatever we don't care about. Let's get all that to the chatbots to handle, which is perfectly well to do. Handle that at 40%, increase the value, and then the ROI won't matter. It's a really simple proposition. I said it 20 years ago.
And you heard it here first.
No, but and to what Esteban said, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? I've been having conversations with clients for several years about changing the metrics for success in customer service. And you can't be focused on just handle time and all the efficiency metrics if, in fact, you've got a mandate for CX from the CEO, right? You need to actually start aligning your metrics to the thing your boss's boss's boss is trying to drive. And if you can't do that, why are you measuring it? Why is that not true, to Esteban's point, for the virtual assistants, right? If you're going to make $1 billion, you know what? The CEO cares about that. Show that you're doing that, and then that's the value. No, I totally agree. And by the way, this is kind of historic. The two of us on stage together agreeing.
I'm feeling
I don't know.
lightheaded.
Hold on. It's not historic that he agree with me. It'd be historic if I agree with you.
Oh, okay. Got it.
It's a total reframing. Well, geez, feeling
You
really
don't like the
lightheaded.
question, then accept the premise of the question.
So one of my catchphrases for what you've described is so we're really putting the self in self-service, where self-service used to be synonymous with automated handling of those routine calls, but taking an intelligent assistant or conversational commerce approach to it, you're really focusing on what the intent is of that individual, and they are serving themselves from their own point of view. That's customer satisfaction. I don't know how to make this into a question.
So let me take over now.
Let me try to say something about that. I think there was another element is that when you look at the acquisition that Salesforce has been making over the past 6 to 18 months in the field of AI, it's all about making sense of the data in the system, and that should ultimately feed the personalization and context we talk about. The other is about helping the employee. So it's no longer customer facing, but the first application, think of Tempo, are starting to come back as assistant helping employee do a better job. So what I should be doing next with all the customers and prospects I have. So we'll see, and I'm not trying to make a question, I'm just trying to bring the conversation to the next level. We will see, I think, with this maturity that assistants are going to penetrate other segments, other use cases.
Actually, if you take that one level further, we are finally getting to what the real is at the crux of this discussion, which is, for the first time ever, I've been doing customer service for 30 years. I know I don't look that old, but trust me. But I've been doing customer service for 30 years, and for the first time ever, we get to the point where we actually want to answer questions, which is what artificial intelligence is for. It's not about data. The data is just, part of what you look at, but it's about answering questions. It's about understanding the question and answering the question. And if you can do that, you automate it. If you can automate it, customers, it's been proven forever. Customers want an answer. They don't care to talk to somebody. They want an answer. You can automate it through text, through a bot, through whatever. They get the answer, and that's all they want. They want the answer. So it's about answering the questions. If you get to that point, then you change the concept of what customer service is, because we no longer have to worry about the 60% that we don't care about, and we can focus on answering the 40% that bring true value to the organization. Highly unlikely that you'll sell $1 billion for somebody asking you where you're located. It's been known to happen, but
So we have this image of a couple things, that there's some intelligent resource that can answer your question, help you accomplish a goal. We've brought up chatbot a lot, and somehow we didn't, these message bots, if you ask me, tend to be kind of task-oriented, relatively simple, because you're usually in a text format, so they're either serving up radio buttons or multiple choice. So there's all of us that had been involved with speech-enabling IVR and introducing dialogue management and stuff like that, thinking, well, what happens to that? And now I'll phrase the question here. And this one's for Ian, and it sort of has to do with, Joe Gagnon hinted at like a 18-month cycle of investment where essentially there are people in the innovation parts of organizations or in the contact center group who are aware of these capabilities but aren't quite yet ready to spend on it, because there's that whole procurement process. But in your opinion, what can we see in the next year and a half-ish? What does that mean about a little time after that, and what would be a successful sort of endpoint or steady state for intelligent assistantdom?
So I'm going to pull an Esteban here and be Clintonian in my triangulation. But let me actually start my answer with an anecdote. I had an inquiry on Friday with a North American retail bank, and they were asking about chatbots. They started it saying, well, we hear that Uber's going to be monitoring your conversations and then suggesting through their bot when it might be able to offer you an Uber because you're talking about going to a party or something like that. And, my reaction was predictable for the banks out here or anybody in financial services. For the love of God, please don't do that. You're not Uber. You're a bank. And once we got to that point where the thing that had thrown up this trial balloon inside of their company got shot down, we got down to real conversation. And I think that's sort of a parallel to what's going to happen here. There are a lot of inflated expectations from people in the contact centers about what this technology will be able to do today. And if we get to the point, and I think we will, get to the point of realistic conversations, to Esteban's point, right? 80% of your questions are really boring, very low-value questions that actually drag down your enterprise because they actually wear away at the soul of the agents and actually drive higher churn.
More or less.
More or less. That's more or less what he said. I'm just more articulate. And more handsome, but we won't get into that today.
This is one distinguishing factor left, don't worry.
Okay, anyway, once we get to those conversations, I think we're going to start to see real investment. One of the things that you had brought up in the sort of preparation for this panel was, is that going to look like the virtual agent world that was contact center focused in the past, or is it going to be more of the personal assistant world? And it's interesting because in the conversation with that bank, I brought up the possibility, not necessarily 18 months from now, but investing now to work towards what I think you're calling metabots. This idea that Alexa will be able to invoke your bot, not a skill, but the actual interaction. Or maybe through partnerships, you're an auto manufacturer and you're helping a customer choose the right truck for them. Oh, and then it invokes your partner's bot to actually talk about the financing of that.
Don't forget IoT.
I did not throw in IoT.
You
at all
have
yet.
to. Otherwise, it's not very spectacular.
I didn't hit all the bingo. I didn't hit the buzzword bingo. Hey, the point of all that is once I started to talk about that, then they started to see a path to say, okay, what do we need to do to invest now to get to that end state that might be realistic 5 years from now?
Or let's do this. Let's forget about the interface of the chatbot. And let's invest in real artificial intelligence that automate every single process in the organization, optimizing the resources and voiding the entire conversation we had for the last 25 minutes.
Doesn't void it.
Are you actually saying
I'm saying
the
that's what's gonna
presentation
happen.
layer
What are you
doesn't
talking
matter?
about? What are you
Because
talking about
that's
such
fine.
a-
The
you're
presentation
talking about-
layer doesn't matter. But that's not the...
It absolutely doesn't matter. But when you're talking about such a micro segment of the problem, it's like if I'm going to invest all that money in solving the problems of customer service, might as well invest the money in fixing the organization, optimizing the processes end to end. Forget customer service. And, a rising tide rises all boats, including customer service.
So why is that any different than the problems we've had in customer service for years, where
you keep
if
going
you
back to
just
customer service.
fix the website, then
Dude,
30% of the volume doesn't come into the contact center. But
So-
what do we
so-
do? We actually optimize the service, not fix the problem.
Okay, so let's do-
So
let's
why
do
are
this.
enterprises going to be any smarter about
Close
that
your,
than they
close
have
your
been?
eyes and imagine there's people outside of customer
Okay, now you're
service.
getting the normal Ian and Esteban
but
thing.
seriously. Close your
me
eyes.
interrupt
Close your
for a
eyes and
second.
imagine there's people outside of customer service with budgets much bigger than customer service. Oh wait, you don't have to close your eyes and imagine. It happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So close your eyes and imagine that. And then we take that money and we actually implement a great infrastructure of artificial intelligence that can ask any question and get you any answer from any data that the organization has, including customer service. Why are we going to spend the money in fixing a small problem when the bigger problem is going to remain unsolved? If you're going to do it at the right level. Don't do it only for customer service.
All right. I'm going
Sorry.
to break this virtual
I get passionate
cycle.
about certain things.
We have 5 minutes to open up for questions of this group. Oh, I see Wally in the back. Stand up and yell. I can't make it over there.
Yeah, you want to run that far. I want to go back to Ian's point about lifestyle, because this is something that's very dear to my heart. I can't help but think that all these enterprises engaging all these companies, and forgive me for this, Dan, but it's retrograde to think there's going to be X tens of thousands of what used to be considered websites, but they're really chatbot sites or intelligent agents on everybody's website or on everybody's contact points. And I gotta believe that Google or Amazon or somebody is gonna come up with, and maybe it's Alexa already, the universal interface. And the CRM piece is really on my side of the equation. As a consumer, I know all the stuff that I want and that I do. My personal assistant connection to Alexa should know all the stuff that I want and that I do. And I should only have to use one interface. Does that not seem logical?
Yes, but here's the thing. So you're talking about a couple of things that are actually dear to my heart. The concept of the consumer in charge of CRM is called VRM, Virtual Relationship Management, where MIT, Doug Searles, the guy who wrote the Clue
Harvard-
Train
Harvard
Manifesto.
Train manifesto.
Yeah, so I mean, they're doing a lot of work on that today. So MIT has a couple projects that are live already where consumers get to choose what they do in relation to the organizations. And I totally agree with you. And this is when I said earlier when he was talking about yes, I set up all these accounts interactions, when I said that's your privacy. This comes down to privacy, that's all. That's at the end of the day, it comes down to privacy. My comment about artificial intelligence is if you're going to be stupid, and I put myself in there, if you're going to be stupid enough to give away our information to an organization, might as well they use it the right way, which is use it at a central place versus in 6 or 7 or 10 different places in different ways. But
You want to know the biggest fight I have every day nationwide right now is with my information risk management.
Yeah? Yeah?
And every organization has their own set of risk management people that are all going to object strenuously to integration with the university.
which is the only reason why bots haven't taken over yet and Singularity doesn't exist.
On the other hand, you look at all these companies who are embedding their chat and customer interaction and giving away a huge amount of data to Facebook. It's true, there's a lot of security and risk and privacy professionals inside of organizations throwing up at least conceptual roadblocks, but certainly we're getting around that. I agree with Esteban on the security front, though. This is a security question. The other thing I would say is Dan can tout his session tomorrow, or Greg's session tomorrow on metabots, and there will be a conversation just on that topic.
And to finish that answer, Facebook announced today they have 38,000 chatbots already deployed, right? So my question, similar to you, will be to Facebook. It's like, why have 38,000 chatbot versus one bot that actually lets you use all the functionality?
Because Miss Piggy is funny. Ha ha ha.
Because I can charge 38,000 people money versus one.
Yes.
We have another question from the audience over here. You. Didn't you have your hand up?
I was going to make a comment, but you kind of made it.
Oh, we have
The
some.
point I was going to say is that, you know, if you look at kind of where it's going between Alexa, Google, Siri, that kind of thing, that's where the relationship starts. So these are the primary ways of searching for things. These are the primary ways for interacting with things. And people are using less and less apps today. So 5 years ago, people used to use 100 plus apps, and now you have
5.
5.
Uh,
You have 30,
Forrester
you have
data
30
says
on
5.
the glass and 5.
down a few more. So, I mean, as time evolves over the next 6 to 18 months, do you go to Nationwide? Do you go to Geico? Do you go to these different apps to do your thing, or do you go to a universal app that handles everything? I think that's kind of what you guys are trying to do.
And that's the sort of conversation points we want to have, at least while we're here, and we're starting that conversation. And I would point out that one of the problems with Alexa, if you ask me, that I think they're in the process of trying to solve, is the Echo or the hockey puck shaped thing, all these different.
Tap or dot?
Apricot?
No, tap. The
Ta-
Echo,
tap and
Echo,
dot.
Tap, dot, and
Right.
Alexa.
And then Alexa's going to be
Alexa's Echo. Tap
Right.
is the meaning dot is the one you take with you to the hotel.
Exactly. And but if as Echo sits in the kitchen and Ian shares a house with Janet, I share my house with my family and cats, and Alexa right now doesn't know the difference between me and Dari, and actually it's associated with Dari's account. So it's kind of an identity and security and personal service nightmare. So we're not there yet, but that's a known thing that we need to solve, this how you disambiguate people.
Yeah, but that's where things like Jibo are going, right?
We don't know where Jibo is going.
Is Jibo actually still going anywhere? Sorry. Roberto can beat me up later.
Yeah. Or Steve.
Oh, yeah.
She had a
Oh,
question
wait.
for a long time.
Yes, yes, please.
So I'd like you to talk about attention. I've seen, Joe brought it up earlier with the need for good domain models. What do you call a subway in different countries? Or what's your underlying conceptual models versus what I'll call the AI light. You can get this up and running, you have a really good customer interaction in 2 months, but that's an AI light solution in my mind. And I think Esteban talked about the deep AI. And we're still in this romanticizing the AI, right? We can do the AI light, we know it's a solvable problem now because of compute time. But it's a big jump to get to what this gentleman was saying about, I want to marry my AI light to the back-end problem and make it a full-service, knowledgeable system with content models and domain models that are informing it. Can you each address that question?
And this will be our wrap-up question. This is
You guys wanna start, or-
how you bridge the gap, cross the chasm
start.
between AI light and true AI.
Yeah, I think, frankly, what I see is more graduation, this type of bucketization and saying we have AI light, or if you look back to the way Facebook does things, they have a myriad of guys and gals that basically address the questions, and they monitor it, and they build their taxonomy of problems and solution at the same time. So I don't know where to put this type of approach into a two-bucket system with AI light, and I think they are environment. In many cases, customer service is pretty structured actually in terms of questions. So you can dump pretty quickly a set of question and answers. You have this, and you can rapidly carve out an initial use case, and up you go. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was motioning somebody else's hand.
Oh, I
went up.
thought you were listening to what I was saying.
No, I was totally.
But he never listens. He's an
I
analyst.
interpreted
He's the moderator. He doesn't need to
verbal,
listen.
like
I-
excitement.
I thought it was modulating. Moderating?
So I personally think that things are much more gradual in a mix of pure algorithm and a mix with people, and it depends a little bit on where you start from. Do you have an initial set of data to start? Can you carve out rapidly something? And then after it grooms.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start being somewhat flip and somewhat serious at the same time, which is if we got to that point of this true AI, according to Stephen Hawking, we'd all be dead or subjugated by our machines anyway. So I'm not sure I actually want to go there. But I do think that this is somewhat dependent on whether you buy into Esteban's argument or not, right? Because if you buy into the argument that we should be doing this from a holistic point of view for the enterprise and try and solve the home run, fine, then we run into this problem. That's not how people are investing. That doesn't mean they shouldn't. We're not talking about ideal case here. We're talking about real world. That's not how they're investing, mostly.
Nationwide life insurance has 23 admin systems.
Yes.
23.
And what are they adminning?
That different products.
Okay.
Yes. And who owns all 23?
I've got systems that the only documentation is on microfiche.
Yeah.
So to that point,
But here's the
then
thing.
what
Here-
Nicolas is saying makes sense. It's incremental based on each individual role. And
Well, you
maybe
can't
we'll
put
get to
words
the
in his
singularity
mouth.
that
No,
you're
there's no
pining
singularity.
away for. But
First of all, Stephen Hawking and all those guys are wrong. We're never going to get to singularity. We can have the conversation over beers anytime you want. I'll tell you why. And seriously, I can tell you why. But here's to answer your question. In reality, this is what you do. You take a decades-long approach to fixing things the right way, the way Facebook, Apple, and Google have done, and then you go and compete in the marketplace for the really smart people who can do it, that they all work for Facebook, Google, and Apple today. And you're not going to get them because they pay a lot more than you can pay. Nothing personal. They're paying a lot more than you can pay because Facebook wants to own every single piece of information for purposes of advertising to you, and we're nice enough to give it to them for free.
for free.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
In exchange for seeing my high school sweetheart's kids, picture when he turned 5 or whatever, right?
Do you know what you were doing 2 years ago today? How
Yeah,
would
but
you
now
know-
I can
It
put a
doesn't
little
matter. The
angry
point-
face
point
in
is
his
that
comment
the
about
answer
that.
to your
so.
question is like it's a decade-long approach versus like a simple solution to deploying 23 different chatbots. Because the 23 chatbots, they
Okay.
yeah.
So to Esteban's point, and here's what I'll agree with. So we have a 15-minute award ceremony, then we adjourn to the cocktail area, and I think we bring this up. I would say that we, Opus, framed this as a discussion of intelligent assistance for a reason, because intelligent assistance, us serving ourselves, is our consumption model for AI. And that it's kind of on us as individuals, and Esteban brought up VRM and that sort of thing, but it's kind of on us as individuals to keep the I in front of the A instead of the A in front of the I. And I think in John Markov's book, he pointed out that what we abbreviate as IA, which is intelligent assistance, he was calling intelligence augmentation, and there's a whole body of development around using the smarts of computers and knowledge management and all that sort of stuff to augment ourselves, as opposed to sort of AI, artificial intelligence, which is kind of unguided and boundless. and it's our way of putting some bounds on it, and whether it's conversational, yes.
Well, my reason for really asking the question is because what I see in some of these systems, Joe brought it up, is a lack of the domain modeling and content modeling. I think needs to go on to make these really powerful.
Yeah.
For whatever use, I'd like to see them being used for helping people in a variety of ways. But that domain modeling and the knowledge modeling, content modeling is different than the algorithmic quick wins that we're talking about here. And we need to marry them together, which I think is doable.
So true, and yes. And on that note of hope, I think we can adjourn to our next session. But thank you for that. That was great framing. And thank you to those panelists.